2021 bowl season. We have the Music City Bowl, Tennessee and Purdue tied at 45. Important, not just that it's tied at 45. The defenses aren't doing much. First drive of the first overtime, Tennessee gets a 4th and 1, and Josh Heupel decides to go for it. Didn't just take some amount of points, an easy field goal from 20 yards out. He goes for 4th and 1 trying to get the touchdown. Was that the right decision? To find out, we just need to calculate some probabilities and do some simple calculations. So these are the ways you could win. You can win by kicking. You can win by running a 4th down play. If you're going to kick, you have 2 ways to win. So there's 2 expressions, one on either side of the plus sign. This field goal could go through. Then turnover on downs while Tennessee is up 3, TOD.3. So you would win by 3 points. Or the field goal goes through. D3, your defense allows 3 points specifically, and then you win in a future overtime. Or you could run this 4th down play, and you would also have 2 ways to win. You can get the touchdown, and we're not dealing with conversions today. Just let's say a touchdown is 7. You could get the touchdown, then get a turnover on downs when you're up 7 and win in first overtime. Or you could get the touchdown. Your defense could allow 7, so you'd still be tied, and then you could win in a future overtime. And I'm not including ways you can lose. Ways you could fail on the kick or 4th down and still win. Yeah, it's possible, but those percents are going to be so small. We would add another plus sign, and then it would be something like on this bottom row here, fail the 4th and 1, the probability of that, the probability of holding Purdue to 0, and then the probability of winning in a future overtime. So it's going to be 3 probabilities, which is going to be a small number anyway, one of which holding Purdue to 0. That's why I said it's important. It's not just tied, it's tied at 45, because Purdue's not getting stopped all that much this game. Tennessee's defense really isn't showing up. So you're going to have 3 probabilities that you're multiplying, and one is going to be very, very small. So the whole thing is going to be very, very small, and I'm just not going to bother with those calculations. So we need some probabilities. We need to know how likely we are to make this 19-yard field goal, to get a turnover on downs if we go up 3, for a defense to specifically allow 3, to win in a future overtime if it got to that, to get a turnover on downs if we're out on defense up 7 points, and to specifically allow 7 points. So the problem with analytics right now, there's so many people to the extremes. Some people say never use it. Some people say always use it. There's a small group that understands it's one of your tools. So let's not look at Tennessee's defense historically, like all season, or Purdue's offense all season. Let's look at tonight. Purdue had 17 drives. I broke that down into drives of fewer than 25 yards and drives of 25 or more yards, because that's the difference between Purdue getting a touchdown right here or not. I understand it's not perfect. It's different picking up 25 yards from your own 30 to your opponent's 5 than it is from your opponent's 25 into the end zone. But this is a good indicator, and it's data from this game. This is how these players were playing tonight. So Purdue had 6 drives go fewer than 25 yards. They had 11 go 25 or more. Then I made this chart. So Tennessee goes on defense. What's the probability they allow 0? I said it's going to be tiny. It's not going to be 0. Of course, they can get a turnover. They can force a very long field goal that misses. So we could put in some small but non-zero number. I put in 5%. Then allow a field goal, 33%. How did we come up with that? 6 of their drives went fewer than 25 yards. So 6/17 of the remaining 95% we had after we allotted 5% for Tennessee's defense, allowing no points when they go out here on Purdue's drive. Same thing with the touchdowns. How did I get to 62%? It's the 11 times Purdue had a drive that went 25 or more yards out of their 17 total. So 11/17 of that remaining 95% after we gave 5% to Tennessee allowing nothing. And you get 62%. All of this needs to add up to 100. It does. So now, what are these probabilities? In this column on the left, we have kicking a field goal and it goes through. Yeah, it's very short. It's not exactly 100, but we could say 100. The 5% here for turnover on downs when we're up 3 is allowing fewer than 3 points. So that's just this first row in this chart on the bottom right, 5%. Allowing specifically 3 points is the second row, 33%. Overtime, I say it's 50-50. If we got to overtime, that means it was tied after 60 minutes, so a much smaller period to me is even more so 50-50. 38% for turnover on downs if we're playing on defense up 7. Well, this is giving up 7 points, the 62, so it's everything else. It's the 5 plus the 33%, 38%. And the final probability we need to know, our defense allowing exactly 7, and that's the final row. So now we could actually plug some numbers in. So this was the 2 ways we could win, 2 ways to win by kicking, 2 ways to win by running a 4th down play. Top row, we actually have some numbers. So we have to multiply and add, but top row, just numbers. The bottom row, we want to figure out how often should you be getting this 4th and 1? That's the question. The first thing I asked, was Josh Heupel right to run this 4th and 1? Well, we have to know how often it's going to succeed. So to the left side of the plus sign and to the right side, we have the probability of a touchdown. We could factor that out. So it's the probability of a touchdown multiplied by this expression in brackets. In brackets are probabilities that we have from the chart that I just made. So we could add the next line, and this is how it looks with numbers involved. The only thing we don't have is the probability of scoring a touchdown on 4th and 1. So let's just do a little math and clean this up. I converted everything from a percent to a decimal so that we could actually do the calculation. And now I've multiplied and added everything. So the probability of winning if you go out here and kick, 0.215, 21.5%. The probability of winning if you run a 4th down play. It's the probability of scoring a touchdown multiplied by 69%. So how do we find out if this was a correct decision? We need to set these two equal to each other. We're going to get a number for the probability of scoring a touchdown. If you think you're more likely than that to score a touchdown, you should be running this 4th and 1 play. It's not going to happen every single time. That's fine, but you should be doing it. It gives you your best chance of winning. If you think you're less likely than that to score a touchdown, then you should be kicking. So we set them equal. We had the 21.5% equal to the probability of a touchdown multiplied by 69%. We just divide both sides by 0.69. And on the left side, we just have a number. On the right side, we just have the probability of scoring a touchdown. Here it is as a decimal, and here it is as a percent. 31.2%. If you think you're 31.2% or better to get this 1 yard on 4th and 1, you should be going for it. I don't think there's a coach in the world who would say they're less likely than that. So I think even though these numbers aren't perfect, it's what we have based on tonight's play. And I say, yes, Josh Heupel made the right decision to run this 4th and 1. So Purdue runs this play and they get stopped. And aside from whether the forward progress was stopped or not, they don't get in. And eventually Purdue runs some conservative plays and they kick a field goal. So Tennessee lost. But here's the thing. The right decision doesn't need to work 100% of the time. And there are a lot of areas where people understand this, and some areas like this type of situation where they don't. Teams don't go undefeated every year. That never happens. Quarterbacks don't have 100% completion rates. Running backs don't always run for positive yardage. You can make the right decision, and it still fails some of the time. That's fine. So Josh Heupel had a lot of decisions to make. The last offensive decision of the game was on 4th and 1, kick or run a play. And I will argue with anybody who wants to argue about it. He made the right decision, even though it didn't work this time.